Even though it makes sense the last two Fast and Furious movies will try to get back to the story's roots, Fast X shows the franchise can no longer do that. Fast and Furious 11 is the last movie in the series, but Vin Diesel said that Fast X is being treated as the first part of the series finale. So the next Fast and Furious movie will have to be both the end of 20 years of Fast and Furious movies and the beginning of the end of the franchise. The idea that Fast and Furious needs to go back to its roots comes from Fast 5, which came out in 2011. After Paul Walker and Vin Diesel came back to Fast and Furious for the fourth installment, it was clear that Fast and Furious could go on.
I literally belong to you. When I'm doing a stunt or when I'm doing a combat scene.
Brian and Toretto's comebacks in Fast and Furious 4 were already a lot more exciting than when Dom was stealing DVD players, but Fast 5 was the first movie to really make a big jump in scale.
That says 3 monosyllabic words, and then follow up with another character that says nothing.
Fast and Furious is bigger now than it was 10 years ago. The film's budget is the first big sign that Fast and Furious won't be able to return to the franchise's roots.
And I'm doing this big scene with 15 people, and they're trying to stomp my head.
The budget for Fast X is said to be $340 million, which is by far the most of any Fast and Furious movie. The reported budget for F9 was close to $225 million, while the budget for The Fate of the Furious was $270 million.
Junior 2 days ago, and I told him that I got special powers in this movie.
From Fast 5 to Furious 7, all of the Fast and Furious movies had budgets between $100 million and $200 million.
And, you know, sometimes people are a little off and they kick me in the jaw while I'm doing this scene.
Still, the budget for Fast X is not that surprising when you think about everything else about the movie. For example, Brie Larson and Jason Momoa will be added to the cast that already has a lot of big names.
I just want to be a part. Just to be an honor to be around the cast and just be a part of it instead of like hosting. I just love it so much.
Fast X also had to deal with a change of director after the filming already had begun, which adds to the cost of making the movie. Still, a budget of about $340 million puts Fast X in the same league as big superhero movies like Avengers: Infinity War.
Not acting like they're tired. That daylight savings is a really... I think we should rethink that.
Infinity War had an estimated budget of $316 million, which means that Fast X will have cost more than Infinity War, which was Marvel's most ambitious crossover event. Fast and Furious is now seen as similar to Marvel superhero movies, which will be hard to change with how big Fast X looks to be.
This is different than the other losses that I've had. I grew up in New York City being a bouncer.
Even though Fast X has a big cast, its budget suggests it will be a big movie. The first movie in the series, The Fast and the Furious, cost $38 million, so Fast X will have cost 9 times as much as the first Fast and Furious movie.
And you just thank God at the end of the picture that people are safe.
Not only does that show how much the series has changed, but it also shows the franchise is still a long way from going back to its roots. With such a big budget, it's expected that Fast X will do well at the box office.
Oh, I have to think about the guest list. I mean, last year she wanted Post Malone and Sway Lee to perform.
This means the movie has to be good enough to be a blockbuster. Both Furious 7 and The Fate of the Furious made more than $1 billion, so it's likely that Fast X will do the same in 2023. The big cast of Fast X has an effect on the budget discussion.
And the other losses that I've had. I grew up in New York City being a bouncer, and you would lose people.
But it also has an effect on what to expect from the story. Since Fast 5, in which characters from all of the previous Fast and Furious movies work together to pull off a heist, the Fast and Furious movies have had a cast of many different people.
State of the world right now, all of you are here, and you all look so excited to be here.
Even though Brian and Toretto were still the main characters, they were no longer the only ones the movies centered around. People liked characters such as Roman, Han, and Giselle, which helped make each Fast and Furious movie bigger than the last.
Spend 15 years going from being a nobody to somebody with a brother.
For example, Luke Hobbs, who was the bad guy in Fast 5, joined the Fast and Furious family after that movie.
And then I saw On the Waterfront, and then I thought I had a new On the Waterfront, a Marlon Brando movie.
In the same way, Fast and Furious 6 brought Letty back, and she rejoined the rest of the Fast and Furious family. Ramsey, the hacker behind the God's Eye, was first seen in Furious 7, and he's been part of Fast and Furious ever since.
Past movies when it's related to a story point for the next one.
Not to mention other bad guys like Deckard Shaw and Cypher, who keep coming back either as friends or enemies.
Very passionate about doing But right now, the focus is this Morbius.
Even if all the Fast and Furious characters can only do so much in a movie, having multiple main characters makes it impossible to make a story as simple as Brian and Dom's in the Fast and Furious.
All at work. I don't ever, if you do this entire interview and everyone in the comments is like, I don't know why he's pointing a mic to thin air.
After Fast 5, the Fast and Furious family became special agents for the government. This is one of the biggest differences between the new Fast and Furious movies and the old ones.
Now we're already a year into pre-production for Fast 10.
In the movie's Fast 5, Dom and his crew were on the run and Hobbs, played by Dwayne Johnson, had to go after them. But in Fast and Furious 6, Hobbs asked Dominic Toretto for help. From then on, Hobbs became a kind of plot device in Fast and Furious because he could tell Toretto and his crew where to go next.
And then has morphed into still having its roots in car culture, but keeping obviously the focus on family as well.
Having the Fast and Furious family work as special agents also helped the series focus less on cars and more on action. Dominic Toretto was all of a sudden the last chance for a lot of people to catch dangerous thieves or get back important technology.
We were supposed to release this movie a year ago, as you know. And then we went through what we went through for the year.
With the addition of Mr. Nobody in Furious 7, the new tone of Fast and Furious got even stronger. Now, Dom and his crew were working with a mysterious agent who could take them anywhere in the world and give the Fast and Furious crew permission to do whatever missions they wanted. In F9, it wasn't clear what would happen to Mr. Nobody.
You're going to be in the WWE. Like, you never think that that's going to happen, ever. And when you do,
But the fact that his sidekick Little Nobody is back in Fast X almost proves that Dom will keep being a secret agent and not just a guy trying to make things right. Truth be told, most fans hoped the franchise would just go back to its roots.
Been wanting to be a part of another franchise because the last time I was in a franchise was Transformers.
Back to a time when the franchise was about crazy street races with simple stunts like stealing a gas truck, not the exaggerated movies with crazy stunts like driving a car off the cliff knowing a metal cable will stick to the hill and swing you to safety. George of the Jungle style, but with cars. However, considering all of this, it's clear that Fast and Furious can't really go back to its roots for Fast X, no matter how hard they try.
Because, I mean, after a while, you get, you kind of run out of shit to do.
Fast X is the 10th Fast and Furious movie, but it's also the sequel to F9. This means the next Fast and Furious movie has to live up to the standards set by F9 and other recent Fast and Furious movies in terms of spectacle and big action scenes. Even though it would be interesting for Fast and Furious to have a story with more introspection like the first movie, it's too late for Fast X to be anything but a cinematic event. Still, Fast X and Fast and Furious 11 can at least try to be like the first Fast and Furious movies, which were mostly about the characters. There will still be action scenes like the Vault heist in Fast 5 or the rocket car in F9, but that doesn't mean that Dominic Toretto should be a one-dimensional character. Fast X might not be like the Fast and Furious because Paul Walker isn't in it. Dom and Brian's friendship was the most important part of the first movie. Still, Fast X and Fast 11 are good endings to the series, no matter how much it's changed. And that's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.